This video is killing me.
Yes, nice.
I looked up and I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council. Thank you for joining us this evening. Today is August 25th, 2020. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett,
Present.
Ms. Bowers,
Present.
Ms. Daniels,
Present.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Madsen,
Here.
Mr. Majors. Mr. Majors on?
Yes. Mr. Majors?
Hear me? Hello?
Yeah, turn your volume up, probably.
All right, Ms. Williams.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Moving on to the invocation, Mr. Allett.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to keep in our thoughts and prayers all of our students who are returning to school, and particularly in our city virtually, which I know is a change both here and around the country, a change for our kids, a change for our teachers, a change for our parents. So there is a lot of probably strength and goodwill that needs to go around to all of them as everyone adjusts to at least what is the new normal right now. So I definitely wanted to put that out there for, especially in our community. I also wanted to send thoughts and prayers out to Jacob Blake and his family. I think it's important to say his name. He was an individual who was shot by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he remains hospitalized. This is on top of countless conversations we're having currently in our community about public safety and crimes that are not necessarily crimes, but shootings that occur in our Black and Brown communities. And it's sad, and it's something we need to address, and we need to keep having these conversations and keep driving for change, both here locally and around our country and world. So I just wanted to kind of lift up Jacob Blake and his family in our thoughts and prayers. If we could just bow our heads for a moment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allett. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Green.
Thank you, President Williams. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisibly, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We now move on to communications. This evening, we had the mid-year budget review. Mr. Mark Woolley will be giving that review. Mr. Woolley, are you on?
Yes, Madam President, I am.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you now, Mr. Woolley.
So typically, I think you guys are, everybody's used to a different mid-year report. This is my take on it. It's typically in a 40 or 50-page document. This is more of an executive summary that Dan Connolly, who's also on the line, and I worked on. And we offer this in really a time where the world is dealing with the COVID-19 global pandemic. And it gives you a snapshot of where the city currently is and where we think we will be and the rationale behind some of our projections. So with that, just would like to note that the area unemployment rate is the date of this report increased from 4.2% to 13.3% at the height of the crisis and remains at elevated levels. Local businesses are suffering losses, and commuters who in normal times are eating in the city restaurants, parking in its garage, and shopping in local stores are working from home instead. We know that there's a direct link between the economic shutdown and our general fund performance. Several key revenue sources you'll note in the report: real estate taxes, local service taxes, mercantile tax are all tracking well below budgeted levels.
Is there any way you could just screen share with what you're talking about?
I think Kirk, you might have the report. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, the mid-year budget report is in the folders, in city council's folders.
And I think importantly, you'll notice that parking related revenues are down 1.4 million compared to the same period last year. And we're projecting that we'll finish year 2020 with a $2.8 million under budget. We're also anticipating our hotel tax revenue to be more than $500,000 under budget. And overall, we're projecting $61.4 million in total general fund revenues. And that's about almost $5 million below budget, 4.8 million. So in response to this, the administration, led by the mayor, really took some steps to reduce expenses, initiated furloughs, imposing a hiring freeze. And then in addition, we are trying to gain revenues by seeking reimbursement for COVID-related expenses at the federal level and local level as well. And you'll notice too that as part of this, our medical insurance expenses are much lower than anticipated as doctor and hospital visits are declining during this state-imposed pandemic restrictions. I'd like to take note that because of the shutdown, the Harrisburg Senators, the minor league baseball team, they have called off their season, and as a result, they will not be able to make their payments to the city, the lease payments to the city that partially fund the debt service on the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority's series bonds. So we are the guarantor of those bonds, and we'll be making the full principal and interest payments on that debt, resulting in a transfer to the Senator's fund of approximately $446,000, more than budgeted. So, but overall, the city is projecting a $2.8 million lower in general fund expense, resulting in a projected $1 million operating deficit before transfers to pay down the AMBAC forbearance liability and capital expenditures. It's also worth noting that I think we're in a better position than a lot of other municipalities. And that's because we've had to be disciplined, as you know, and as council has required of us in the administration to be disciplined in our spending and operating budget surpluses that we have, which have contributed to a strong fund balance. So with that, there are attachments that are for you. Instead of going page by page, maybe if you had questions about about the report, maybe we could go over that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Woolley. I did speak with Mr. Allett. Mr. Allett, did you want to have some questions and answers since this goes into your committee, or do you want to move forward with it next week?
Actually, I would love if we could make sure this is part of the agenda for next week on the work session. That way council members have a chance to look over it. Mark, I talked with Charlie today, and he has some different numbers on there in terms of beginning with kind of year-to-date expenses that are different. I'd like to see if we could make sure between the Office of Finance within the city and the Controller's Office, we can reconcile some of those differences over the course of this week, so we can have that as part of our discussion next week. Is that possible?
I'll work with the Controller's Office in order to see where.
The one glaring thing that I saw from something that Charlie sent me today is that they are projecting expenses year to date higher than what you have posted. So that starts there, and there's some differences in year-end balances that are off as well. I just want to make sure we can account for perhaps where those differences are and can all be on the same page.
Will do. Late in the day, we had conversations with the Controller's Office and through Brian McCutcheon. So we'll be looking to see what numbers they're using as compared to ours, and we'll we'll see what the differences are and go from there.
Right, and as long as we have confidence among our, three entities, I'm fine to move forward. I just want to make sure those conversations occur.
Okay, they will.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Woolley, could you please be in attendance at our next work session, please?
Most certainly, Madam
Okay.
President.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to courtesy of the floor, Mr. Petrosky, is there any comments from the public?
I do not have any comments.
Any calls? No calls?
No.
Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes, council members. Approval of the legislative session minutes of July 7, 2020. Is there any corrections, omissions, or deletions? Hearing none, minutes will stand approved. We now move on to reports committee. Report from Chair Green on the Public Safety Town Hall meetings of August 6, 2020, August 11, 2020, and August 18, 2020. Ms. Green, are you ready with your report?
Yes, President Williams, thank you.
You're welcome.
During our summer hiatus, Public Safety held 3 town hall discussions on Bill 8, 2020 on August 6th, 11th, and 18th. During these town halls, several fellow council members came to listen to the public's voice and their thoughts on Bill 8. I would like to thank Councilman Madsen, Councilman Majors, Councilman Allott, Councilwoman Bowers, and Councilwoman Daniels for coming out to hear the citizens of Harrisburg. I would also like to thank our city solicitor, Neil Grover, for his attendance and support answering technical questions in regard to the legislation. Lastly, but certainly not least, I would like to thank Momin Bhatti, our communications manager, for all of his hard work in making these town halls happen. And a special thanks to Parks and Recreations for helping with the event at Reservoir Park. 2 of our town halls were held virtually via Zoom and broadcast on YouTube, and 1 was held in person at Reservoir Park. Each town hall had over 50 people in attendance, and we heard public comments from many citizens of Harrisburg giving their thoughts on Bill 8. We heard repeatedly the need for the Police Advisory Commission to have more powers, including the power to subpoena and the power to make recommendations for discipline of officers. We heard firsthand accounts from residents about their experiences with officers. We heard calls for the membership requirements to be changed to not include orientation conducted by the police department or an annual ride along with police officers. Residents had concerns with the chief of police being a non-voting member of the board and asked for that to be removed to create a more independent board. Most of all, we heard for the call of a review board that created more accountability from police officers rather than an advisory commission that will work to improve community policing relations. One of the most memorable comments I heard came during our town hall at Reservoir Park, and it really stuck with me. A young lady asked, who's going to protect us? If we are the board, who is going to protect us to make sure we don't face retaliation from either side? I think this really speaks to the state of policing and public safety that we face as a nation and highlights the fact that Harrisburg is not immune or isolated. And this is the reason why we need to seize the moment to ensure we get this bill and the formation of this committee right, and that we continue to bring true public safety reform to our city, and that as we head into this process, we keep an open mind and a progressive mindset to incorporate the tools we need in our police and public safety departments to uplift the citizens of Harrisburg. By doing so, we uplift both our police department and the needs of our city. I would like to ask that Bill 8 be put into committee and placed on the work session agenda, not for this upcoming work session, but for the second work session in September, where we as a council can make amendments to craft this bill into something that is more representative of what the citizens of Harrisburg would like to see. With that, I conclude my report. Thank you, President Williams.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Green. We now move on to ordinance for first reading. Bill 10, 2020. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Bill 10 of 2020 is an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg various unnamed paper streets within the block bounded by Radnor Street, Jefferson Street, Columbia Street, and North 6th Street, and Agate Street, between Columbia Street and Radnor Street pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg.
That will be placed in Public Works Committee, and Mr. Majors will have to have a public hearing for that, which I told him before the agenda session started. Bill 11, 2020, Mr. Petrosky.
Bill 11 of 2020 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Harrisburg for 2200 and 2300 Market Street zone institutional INS to change the zoning designation to commercial neighborhood CN.
Thank you. That will be placed in Community Economic Development Committee, and that also will need to have a public hearing as well. Bill 12, 2020.
Bill 12 of 2020 is an ordinance amending zoning regulations related to the establishment and operation of bed and breakfast uses, including Chapter 7-305.7B, 7-305.7C, 7-309.2H, 7-333.2A, 24 of the zoning code of the city of Harrisburg.
That would be placed in Building and Housing Committee. We now move on to ordinance for amendment, which we have none tonight. We move on to ordinance for final passage. We have none as well. We now move on to resolutions. Please read Resolution 61 of 2020 into record, please.
Resolution 61 of 2020 is a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan submitted by Shalom House to construct an emergency and transitional housing facility on 3 vacant parcels along North 15th Street.
That would be placed in Community and Economic Development Committee. Moving on to Resolution 62 of 2020.
Resolution 62 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to submit a local share municipal grant application for funding through the Dauphin County Gaming Grant Program for up to $250,000 to help fund the replacement of the air handler and HVAC system in the public safety building.
May I have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. That would be placed in Building and Housing Committee. Ms. Bowers, that is your committee. You may now conduct that meeting, please.
Thank you, President Williams. Good evening, everyone. I see Ms. Ballmer on the line. Will you be speaking on behalf of the city?
Hello, good evening. Yes, and I also have Dave Baker on the line for this resolution as well. So
Okay.
this is, David is more conversant with the actual procedure and what we need to do than I am, but this is the one and only Dauphin County Gaming Grant that we're submitting this year. So everyone else has stepped back to give this its priority. We have high hopes for at least 150,000 in funding. It's the gaming grant. It's a smaller pot this year because the facilities have been closed because of COVID. So we have been actually guided by the Dauphin County consultants to not apply for too much. So we're trying to take that into consideration, but still, propose the actual budget that we need. And Dave can speak more. It's the funding from the city will come from GIZA funding.
Mr. Baker, would you mind explaining what needs to be done or what this grant would cover should the city be awarded?
So what we're trying to accomplish here is a total rebuild of the HVAC system, both the heating and cooling system, the chillers, the heat exchangers, the boilers, you name it, everything in the building is original with the building. We have far surpassed the useful lifespan of everything in the building. I mean, you name it, down to the piping that has the water travel from the basement up into the penthouse on the roof. It's definitely past its prime. We are having difficulty continuing operations in the building just because the fact that the materials are so old, so outdated. Manufacturers have not carried them for many years now, and we cannot source parts from anyone to do any sort of repairs. We tell guys what we need and they kind of laugh at us because they're amazed we still have these systems up and running. So the point of the project is a complete rebuild of the HVAC system for the police station. What we are—
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
What we're hoping to accomplish with the gaming grant is to finish out the budgeting for the project itself.
So ideally, we would ask for a grant ask of 250,000, and
Mhm.
with the understanding that the city will, I mean, the gaming grants generally do not give us the entire amount that we asked for. Last year was a happy exception, and we got full funding for the two things we put in for, which was fantastic. But that's uncommon, and especially this year with so much less funding, we wanted to put in for 250,000, and we still might. The gaming counselors suggested don't ask for more than 150,000. So our plan is to put forward a budget that says, listen, we really need 250, but if you can only give us 200, here's exactly how we'll use it. If you can only give us 150, here's exactly how we'll use it. So a very broken down, phased budget. And I work with them all the time with the county, and I know them well and they know me well. So we're going to do what's rational and what makes sense and what doesn't seem like out of touch and greedy. But the overall budget of this project, and Dave can confirm this, is about $1 million. So we're looking to get at least a chunk of this to get some of the equipment purchased now. And then we'll phase it out over a couple of years for the rest of the funding.
Okay. So I see that the deadline is next Tuesday, September 1st.
Yep.
You mentioned, well, we know that the grant is up to 250,000, but what is the range exactly? So what's the absolute minimum? And then we know the total is 250,000.
Sure. So I would say the minimum ask is 150,000.
Okay.
We write these resolutions, and we also put this into the grant application. We write the language as up to, so that we can have some flexibility. We would not ask for more than 250,000. I don't think we're going to get that this year because of the funding, because they have $2 million less than they usually do. So it'll be an ask between 150 and 250, probably closer to the smaller range, just because of the guidance we've been given, which is, again, it's unusual that they give us guidance. So when they do, I feel like we need to take it into account.
Makes sense. Thank you. Do any of my fellow council members have questions on this resolution? Should we formally go around? Yes. Okay. Councilwoman Daniels.
Thank you. So just to clarify for us, the 250 covers both systems?
So the 250 would be in addition to what the city will be bringing to the table. The complete air handler replacement is many, many different mechanical systems that all work together.
Okay.
I don't want to say drop in the bucket. It's a key part of what we would need to put the project across the finish line, basically.
Okay, so the two things that are on the resolution, as I've understood them, that would be fully funded with the 250 and the city's portion of it. How much is that amount? What's the total?
Okay. So Dave may have dropped off. My understanding is that the total budget is about $1 million. We have 250,000 budgeted for Giza for each of this year, next year, and the following year. And that will be, because we're not using the Giza for this, that'll be wrapped into providing the match. It's not really a match, but the rest of the money to make this project whole. We do need to, we hoped we would get 250,000 from this grant. And then we had 250 for the next 3 years that would make the project whole. If we only get 150, we will have to find another 100,000 somewhere in the budget or another grant.
So can you explain like what doesn't happen if we only get 200? What doesn't happen if we only get 150?
Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. My mute button was acting up. So in regards to if we don't get the full grants, I believe, and again, this might be Erica's realm, this might be Mark's realm, we might have options in regards to COVID funding. This is another huge thing that we could look into, because right now, again, we're not up to any sort of COVID standards with the air handler. I don't know if that's something we're eligible for or not, but that's something to look into if we do come up short in the project. But we do have the majority of it budgeted for in regards to the Giza.
And then what's the kind of time frame for receiving the money from this grant? And then what part of the project would be done with the first set of money that comes in?
Okay, so as far as the grant goes, Rebecca can answer the time frame on there. The first part of this project to actually break ground on the project would be the purchasing of the large scale equipment. And that's going to be the bulk of the expense for the project.
Do you have a sense of when that's going to happen?
That would, I mean, I can get you like a rough timeline. There's a lot of kind of different parts of the project that we'd have to put together to get a lot of different scopes and everything else. I hope to have a possible engineering firm proposal to legal by the end of this week. And that would be like the very tip of the iceberg in regards to the project. They would give us a lot of information that would tell us, you know, what we need as far as scope of work, the different materials we have to purchase, some of the rough pricing, all that kind of stuff. So that part could hopefully start sooner than later. And then that will give us a lot of detail on the project overall.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Allard?
I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors? We can't hear you.
What's going on? Can you hear me? Test, test.
Yes.
Yes,
When you
that's
whisper.
better.
Oh, okay, hold on. Maybe I gotta move where my, all right. Is that any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's much better.
Okay, and I apologize if I missed this. So timing on when we would plan, if we're successful in getting this, timing on a potential full completion of the system.
I can speak to the grant timing. So it's the gaming grants it's a long process. So it's due September 1st. We will have public hearings in November, right around Thanksgiving. The city always gets public hearing and you just come in and you get a chance to talk about your project a little bit more. And we generally hear from them February or March, usually March, early like March 1st, if we are awarded. And then from that date, from March 1st, we have 1 year to start the project. And that could be almost anything. It could be getting a quote from a vendor. It could be actually putting shovels in the ground. We just have to present them with a progress report of 1 year out. But we then have 3 years to use the money. So it's difficult to get these grants, but it's actually really easy once you get one to apply it. So it's just
Okay,
anything with the county. But we
okay,
have 3 years. And even that 1 year thing where you have to show, demonstrate progress within a year, they're pretty flexible about that. So if we could write them a letter and say, well, we wanted to do this, but we couldn't, so we need another couple months. So the county is very easy to deal with. But that probably answer your question. Dave maybe has more info about the actual implementation of the project.
Yeah, in regards to, well, when we break ground on the project, I think a lot of that comes down to all the internal workings with the city as far as how long, maybe it takes to purchase things once we get everything approved, we get the budgeting all in place. We get everything worked out with you guys in council. It depends. Some of this stuff can take a considerable amount of time to order. If we have to have a chiller created and made, then they bring it in. There's a lot of variations. Personally, I'd like to get it started as soon as possible. I mean, I lose sleep at night thinking about if this system stops functioning. So I think, like I said before, there's a lot of balls in the air. I could probably talk to, maybe Mark and the mayor and figure out the financing side and maybe legal to figure out what protocols we have to complete before we can start to really dive into it. But I think also this commercial audit that we will hopefully be looking into doing soon will help us really tell the timeline of the project as well. Like I can tell you, the project itself, once it starts, should probably take around 3 months to complete. But as far as the actual start date, I think I need a little more information internally before I can give you a rough estimate or an idea.
Okay, but I guess it would just be safe to assume that we could get it completed within the allotted 3-year period.
Absolutely, definitely.
Okay, as long as we secure the rest of the funding for the HVAC and the air handler. Okay, I think Councilwoman Daniels has some of the other questions I had, so no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Madsen.
I didn't have a question specific to this grant application per se. Most of it was covered by my colleagues, but I just out of curiosity, are there any other facilities or city buildings in a similar situation where they might need significant repairs, such as the one in this for this project?
Like a short answer to that would be there are no facilities that need as much repair as this particular one does.
Okay. All right, that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Green.
Thank you. Most of the questions I have been answered, so I don't have any questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. President Williams.
No, I don't have any. Thank you, Ms. Bowers. I have already spoke with Mr. Baker, and I was, at that time, I asked all the needed questions, to get the information. So I do, but wait a minute, I do. Ms. Vollmer, now, I know Ms. Daniels asked about what we're going to do as far as, the allocation of the money. When you apply for the grant, don't you have to be specific in what you're going to utilize that grant money for?
Oh, yes. It's a very specific grant.
Okay, so maybe you can give her a copy of what you're going to apply for and for the grant, and let them know what you're going to use the money for.
Absolutely. You bet.
Okay.
We do a grant narrative that's very specific in a budget.
Right, it gives a clarification of why you need the grant and what you're going to use, specifically what you're going to use the grant for. So maybe she just needs that information.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
Thank you. Due to the time-sensitive nature of Resolution 62, I would like to move forward with a vote.
Okay, thank you. No additional questions, right, Mr. Bowers, from anyone?
I don't believe so. Does anyone else have any follow-up questions?
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to
No.
go back in the session.
I move to return back to our legislative session.
Have a second, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Mr. Petrosky, please read the resolution again. Please call the vote for Resolution 62, 2020.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms.
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Resolution 62 passes.
thank you very much. Moving on to Resolution 63 of 2020.
Resolution 63 of 2020 is a resolution ratifying a contract amendment between the City of Harrisburg and Marsh and McLennan Agency to provide aid to the city in the development management of a request for proposals to solicit new pricing and vendors for its medical, prescription, dental, vision, and life insurance programs.
That will be placed in Budget and Finance Committee. Moving on to Resolution 64.
Resolution 64 of 2020 is a resolution ratifying the submission of an application to the 2020 Dauphin County CARES Act Municipal Grant Program for up to $11,187,703.
That also will be placed in Budget and Finance. Resolution 65, council members, as I indicated in caucus, is going to be removed from the agenda per Mr. Jeffrey Knight's request. Moving on to Resolution 66 of 2020.
Resolution 66 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional service agreement with Civitas LLC for the purpose of providing professional services to the city's Department of Building and Housing Development, including but not limited to technical assistance and general consulting services for general technical assistance, lead tier 2 site specific environmental review and CARES Act technical assistance.
That will be placed in Building and Housing Committee. Moving on to Resolution 67.
Resolution 67 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate, enter into a lease agreement with OmniSite Media for the purpose of utilizing the access road in Paxton Park in order to construct and maintain a billboard in the adjacent Scottsdale Shopping Center.
That will be placed in Community and Economic Development Committee. Resolution 68.
Resolution 68 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the use of a limited agreement for certain post-employment retirement benefit rates to attract and retain experienced senior management officials for the Harrisburg Bureau of Police.
That will be placed in Public Safety Committee. Moving on to Resolution 69.
Resolution 69 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing and approving a senior management consulting services agreement for intergovernmental communication liaison services.
That will be placed in Budget and Finances Committee. Moving on to old business, council members, are there any old business? Moving on to new business, the only new business I have is that I wanted to alert the public as well as council members that from here on, the meetings will be virtual until end of the year or until further notice. Any other new business, council members? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
The meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, council members. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Good night.
Yep.